Call this meeting to order. Will you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Setting out the agenda, any changes?
Just a few, a couple of different, resignation and appointment, student activities requests for ag as well as some speech teams. So overall,
Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Audience participation, thank you for being here. It's an exciting evening for you. Anyone in the audience wish to address any of the agenda items that are on the agenda?
Laura Cryer, item 5.6, the master contract.
Anyone else? If not, you'll have an opportunity later. Item 2.1, focus on learning Plymouth High School.
Yes. Mr. Jim Condon is going to introduce a couple of his teachers and students who are going to share their experience from Europe.
Good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for letting us be here tonight. I have with me several students who were under the supervision of two teachers, Mr. Ryan Wolf and Mrs. Melissa Falstich. And as you are aware, you gave them approval to take a trip to Europe not too long ago, and the students wanted to share with you some of their learning and also how it's been integrated into their curriculum. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wolf and Mrs. Falstich.
Put this up here. We have a little presentation to go along with our kids tonight. As Mr. Condon said, our trip was, I'm Mr. Wolf, by the way. Our trip was last summer in July. We left July 10th. We got back 2 weeks later as the 23rd maybe. I had a wonderful time, and through this presentation we're going to kind of take you station by station or city by city of where we went. Just to kind of give you a little overview, we kind of called ourselves, and through Twitter and Facebook throughout our trip, we kind of called ourselves the Adventurous Pilgrims. This trip was focused on World War II and the Western Front. So everything that we did was really focused on World War II, which curriculum-wise really hits both world history and U.S., but it was probably more focused on U.S. history, which students take as a junior. Most of our kids had either world or U.S. prior to going. If you want to bump ahead to the next slide.
You got a clicker right on the podium.
I have a clicker. Thank you. So yeah, these are just a couple pictures of all of us. On the left is a monument, I think in Bastogne, where we lined up next to Indiana. It was all 50 states around there. We were able to get a picture, and obviously on the right, we had a few that were excited to see the Eiffel Tower. So just real quick, I'll give you an overview of a few years back when Mrs. Falstich and I kind of had this idea and kind of started to come up with some visions and goals. Our goal was to give every student that attends PHS an opportunity to see firsthand the curriculum taught about world and U.S. history. Our vision then was to possibly take a trip every 2 years. With that, every kid would be able to at least attend once with these trips maybe taking place in the summer of odd years. It was our vision a couple of years back. And then really the reason and the purpose was, I think our role as educators is to provide students with experiences that last a lifetime. I was fortunate to go when I was a junior, and it's just kind of weighed on me for the 12 years I've been teaching to provide students with this opportunity. Whether that be in the classroom or abroad, students' lives are shaped every day, and again, this may be the only opportunity some of these kids get to go. Hopefully they get to go back. I know they would love to, and we're going to kind of let them share about their experience, but that's kind of what we thought. So
So we have with us 6 of the 13 students that went to Europe this summer, and they are a wonderful group that donated a lot of time with us to help put this presentation together, because we don't see them every day in class. So we met in like 5 SRTs and even on a Sunday, and a lot of emails back and forth. And it was fun just to reflect with them, because it was so much that we got to learn that we all took away little different bits and pieces. So as we reflected through this presentation, it was just fun to meet back with them. We made really strong friendships in our 14 days. So what we're going to do is let them take you through the cities. They chose the different cities that maybe were more important in their memory, and also some of the things that they learned. So while they tell you about the trip, you might also learn some history. So I'm going to introduce to you Kate Brenneker, Allie Mangus, and Kelsey Cryer, Gabby Ruiz, Josh Hildebrandt, and Autumn Wilson. So you guys can come on up. And this is an PowerPoint.
Who's up first?
Kelsey.
Kelsey's up first.
So first we landed in London, and I'd just like to say it was the best experience I ever had. Europe was amazing to see. London was so cool. We went and saw Wicked at the Apollo Theater. It was the first theater thing I had seen that wasn't on the PHS stage. So it was really, really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. We actually saw the Queen accidentally, which was really cool. She's very pretty.
There's a picture of her right there in the bottom right.
And we saw the whole orientation of how they go through, and the King of Spain was visiting, so that's why they had the whole parade, and he was coming in. It was a really neat experience. It was just, London is a beautiful city. It had a lot of historical parts to it, and we were able to learn a lot.
I chose Normandy because I just was really affected by, like, there's a lot of artifacts that weren't changed. So you'd go to Paris or you'd go to London, and it was a lot of tourist stops and a lot of touristy things, which were cool. But here in Normandy, it was extremely like natural, and all of it was just the same. So if you look in the bottom left, that's a German pillbox on top of Pointe de Hoc, or Hoc, sorry. And also see the crater in the top right corner was from a bomb, and that was still there. And this is Pointe de Hoc, and if you look, that's Utah Beach. And also one of the things that really struck me was how did the Americans come upon that rocky shore and then climb up on that cliff, like you see in like Saving Private Ryan, but like seeing it in person, like it's just so hard to believe. And then we stayed on Gold Beach, and that was really neat. It was a smaller beach, and it was a small hotel, but Mr. Wolf and I and another student, we went out on a walk at like 6 in the morning, and there was like these remnants, but they're an artificial harbor with some remnants called Port Woodson. It was neat to see because it was, some parts were real harbor and some weren't. And then, I don't know, I was just really affected by this. And then we went to the American Cemetery, where we saw a lot of soldiers. And we saw Saving Private Ryan, Ryan.
The Nyland brothers.
Yeah, the Nyland brothers and his brothers. So that was really neat to see, and just kind of see that connection. You hear it in history, you see it in the movies, and you actually got to see it. And it just left me speechless, and it was really emotional.
I think one thing that our tour guide told us, we had a tour guide with us 24/7, he stayed with us, and I remember when we got here, he specifically said to take a minute for yourself and go out by yourself and just look and watch and think. And I mean, I cried. I mean, it was to me, this was the highlight of the trip, for me too. I want to point that out while we were still here. Roughly about 9,300 soldiers are buried here. I mean, most of them were sent back home after the war.
Most families had the bodies
Yeah.
repatriated.
Yeah, so, but the ones that didn't are buried here, and there's a couple of cemeteries that we went to, but each one of these crosses has one name. They all face America. We'll show you later a picture of a German cemetery where there's 6 names, 3 on each side, buried in one. Every one has one name to it, and there were many that had, I can't tell what this one, this is Indiana, this is one of the Indiana ones. We took some pictures of the Indiana, I can't really tell, but Harold Cornelius is his name. But some of them say they're unnamed.
Realize soldier.
Yeah, you're
Not
not-
run and arms none but to God.
None but to God.
There's 300 unknown.
And every cemetery, like, you'd see how much they respected us Americans for, giving them the soldiers to help them fight this war. And we also brought sand from one of the beaches.
Oh, this is from Omaha Beach.
This is from Omaha Beach.
This is from the beach.
We all laughed when Mr. Wolf grabbed a giant Ziploc bag. It came in handy. Actually, we were able to stop at the Kahn Memorial Museum, and they had special glasses. So most of the students bought special glasses with a cork that say D-Day, and we were able to collect sand. So they
Yeah, they all made fun of me when I had a big Ziploc bag with a bunch
Yeah.
of sand. I still have a bunch left, so I have, they've all borrowed it from me the last 7 months. Oh, yeah, you made fun of me then. All right.
Okay. Hello. I chose Paris. It was my favorite because it was just magical to actually be in Paris. I mean, you dream about it as a little kid, and then it actually happens. So, I chose Paris. It was my favorite because the architecture. I learned a lot about the culture. I had my first macaroon in the famous bakery. And so I actually skipped Versailles to go to the Louvre because I researched a lot about the art there. So I saw the Mona Lisa and Venus de Milo, a lot of the famous art there, and that was really, really cool. So the picture on the bottom left is actually in the Louvre, and everything there is beautiful. And obviously, we saw the Eiffel Tower, and we took a boat tour around Paris, and I didn't know, but the Eiffel Tower actually lights up like in sparkles, which I didn't know, and that was really cool to see. So and I also researched this little bookstore. I'm a huge nerd, so I went to this little bookstore in Paris and bought some books, and it was just a really magical time in my life. And we saw the Notre Dame. And I didn't actually get to go into it, but it was cool to see on the outside. And I learned a lot about the culture and the way people live in Paris. So I'd really like to go back someday. So that's all I really got.
I think Gabby bought a book at the bookstore in Sunday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Allie found upstairs, she found a piano.
Oh, yeah.
And her dad, her mom and dad are there, and they went with us on the trip as well. And her dad has video of Allie playing songs. Everyone's just sitting around listening to Allie play the piano at this bookstore in Paris. It was pretty awesome. Allie's looking around going, oh, it was pretty cool.
All right, so in Belgium, we were there for a very short time compared to the rest of the places, but I thought this was one of the coolest places to be. We had a tour of the Battle of the Bulge, which was directed by one of Spielberg's consultants for Band of Brothers. And he lived in Bastogne, Belgium when the Nazis invaded. And he told us about his own experiences of his house. In his house, he housed Nazis. Like, they broke into his house and they lived there. And he just lived with them in his town for years. And he just told us about his personal experience and all about the battle, and how after the battle there were just so many more little war pieces left behind that actually ended up killing a few of his friends because boys were playing on them all the time. And then he took us to the cemeteries. And he brought us to a German cemetery, which was incredibly different from the American cemeteries. They're incredibly dark and gray because the Germans couldn't pay to move the bodies, so they're stuck there. And they just don't really respect the Nazis at all. So they just paint them gray, unlike the American, and those are completely, the Allies, those are white and lined up all pretty, and it really shows a completely different perspective. Like, they really respect what we did for them. And
The German cemetery is in the bottom right.
In the bottom right, you can kind of see that, again, there's 6 names to a cross compared to, this is basically one of the same thing we saw in Omaha,
Another
Normandy,
American
but
cemetery.
another American cemetery.
Henri Chapelle.
They've given us this land. We actually own this land. The U.S. does. To put this cemetery on.
But Belgians donate money every year to to take care of a cross out of respect. And even our bus driver, Hugh, who was driving us around, told us that his family donates money every year for an American cross. Like, they have very much respect.
This, in the top right, and Gabby mentioned it, that was our tour guide, and I mean, unreal. As the guy, I might just elaborate a little bit on what Gabby said. He was 9. I mean, he told us the day the war ended, his dad had went outside to gather snow to melt.
The day of the battle.
The day of the Battle of the Bulge, and then he got hit by shrapnel and killed. Right, his dad walked in and died. He mentioned after the American soldiers came on, I mean, the chewing gum that they brought, the chocolates
And the
that
soft white American bread.
yeah, the soft white American bread.
Their bread is hard.
Yeah. I mean, he was phenomenal. I mean, even our tour guides, he looked at the thing and said, "Oh my, you have him? I mean, you guys are in for a treat." And we all got a picture with him in the bottom right. The middle picture there is of a foxhole that you would see in.
That is the woods from the Band of Brothers,
Yeah.
where they were surrounded in the woods in January 1945.
Yeah. So, yeah, this
It
was
was awesome.
pretty neat. So, thanks, John.
I chose to talk about Berlin because aside from Normandy, I think Berlin was one of the most rich in history places that we visited. You have the Berlin Wall, the Cold War, the significance during World War II, just all these really significant parts of U.S. history and world history. In the bottom right is a video of the Berlin Wall. We actually found out that there's not one Berlin Wall, there's actually two. There's one on both sides, and in between was a death zone. And we had a really awesome tour guide in Berlin because she was originally from Canada, but she's been living in Berlin for like 20 years. So it was really easy to understand her. She had a lot to say and talk about. She said that those that tried to climb over the wall, if you made it over the first wall, then there were dogs there waiting for you. And if you made it past the dogs, then there was like an electrified fence. And then if you made it over that wall, there was like gunmen and like guards walking along. And then there was a second wall all the way on the other side. So it was virtually impossible to cross the Berlin Wall. And then in the top left is the television tower.
The Soviets built.
Yeah, that the Soviets built. Mr. Wolf and I actually got to go up in that, and that was pretty neat. And then also, right after we did that, we got to meet up with one of our former foreign exchange students, Elena. I forget her last name.
I don't know how to say it.
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. It was really cool getting to meet up with a former exchange student in a different country.
We tried to do it to get in Austria, but we couldn't
Yeah.
meet up with
We couldn't meet
a couple
up.
others we
Yeah,
tried to meet up
Germany.
with. Yeah.
And we saw, next slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to show the video?
Oh, it's not really the next slide. 'Cause
What if you see
move
like
your mouse?
a lot of artists?
Oh,
live on
I'm the
walls?
one that did that.
Yeah.
I don't even must have touched.
And then also, we had already saw the Queen, and then we got to see the rest of the royal family. You see that in the top left? There's
William McKay.
William McKay, that's what it is.
This is within
2 days.
4 days.
4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, we had to be the only ones in the world to see both of them in 4 days.
And
We're in
then,
the right place at the right time.
And then the top picture is Checkpoint Charlie. I was actually able to get my passport stamped at Checkpoint Charlie and go through all the process that people back then would have gone through to cross into East and West Germany. And then the bottom left is a statue of Lisa Meitner, the Jewish scientist, and that was actually taken at the college that Einstein taught at. It's I forget the name.
Humble.
Yeah, there
That's
you
and she was actually credited with splitting the atom, but because she was Jewish and she didn't earn a lot of respect from the science community at the time, so she never received any credit for it, even though it was her discovery in splitting the atom.
And she had to flee Germany for her life because she was Jewish.
And then,
Yeah, we liked our
There's a
ice
lot
cream.
of-
yeah.
Tourists for being late.
I got in trouble quite a bit. But, I was always waiting to get ice cream. But, the middle picture there is the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah, memorial.
Or memorial, excuse me, that Berlin, and Brandenburg Gate there on the right.
What I didn't know about that memorial is it's really different heights, and even when you're walking, it's like not level, and it's made to be very uncomfortable. It's made to be very uncomfortable to go through it, and it's just that artistic.
Yeah,
way
on the outside, some of those blocks are only 2-3 feet high, but it actually goes all the way down, and it dips down into like a bowl in the center. So some of those that you see in the middle are like 20 feet high, 20 to 15 feet high. And they're really narrow, and it's hard for people to walk through it because the person who designed it said they wanted it to be very, very uncomfortable and awkward to be there, because that's how Germans view their history there. It's not a comfortable situation to talk about. They're not proud of what they've done. It's very uncomfortable for them to talk about their history.
So I chose to talk about Nuremberg and Munich. So there was, also the top left right there, that's like one of the oldest places that we saw. Just like the architecture is incredible. Because, the United States hasn't been around as long as they have been. So just seeing like the craft and the work that they put in is amazing. We also got to see the Nazi rally grounds. And just like walking through that and thinking that there were so many people there, and just like the power that Hitler had, his rise to power was like a big focus there, compared to when we were in like London and France. There wasn't a lot of like artifacts or anything there. It was focused. They had a lot of writing explaining just like the rise to power, and it was more focused on that instead. And then the bottom left there too, yeah, it goes into Dachau. That was an artist built memorial there, just representing the death that occurred. And then this is Dachau, which is the first concentration camp built, but it was made to be a labor camp in the beginning. And the first thing you see when you walk in is that gate on the top left, which translates to "Work will set you free," which is really cruel, because usually the only way they got out was through death. And those are the sleeping chambers on the right, and then that's what a closet would look like. And then inside they had like the clothes and some other things they might have.
And then their food bowls,
Yeah.
like their life, they lost that, they couldn't eat.
And then the bottom left is like a crematorium thing, and it was just extremely emotional. And they had a huge museum, and when I was walking through it, like, I knew other people went to concentration camps, but they had a huge portion of it was dedicated to, the gypsies and the disabled and Catholics and the communists and the Polish that all went there. It wasn't just the Jews, there was a ton of people that went to these concentration camps, and it was really emotional. And I just remember at the very end, there's a huge book of all the lives lost, and there's not a picture, but it was, I swear, this thick. There's names in this finest print, and it was just awful. But it was very emotional and moving to see that. And we talked about it in class, and then actually seeing where they slept and the conditions they were put in. And there were a lot of pictures, and we watched a movie there with real footage, and it was really something that I'll always remember.
This is the Kelstein and Eagle's Nest in Austria. Kelstein was the Nazis had paid 150 million euros to build this tea house for Hitler. Most of that cost actually went to building the road that was 14 kilometers all the way up. The bus ride that we took was quite an experience, because it's very, the bus ride up it's amazing to see how those buses get up and down, they've got it down to a science.
They actually had modified structure.
It's a modified bus,
Yeah.
like a Mercedes bus that hinged in the center.
And then they had special brakes for going down, because it heated up so much because of the overuse of brakes, just because of the grade of the slope going up and down the hill. Also, when we arrived there, the bus tour only takes about halfway up, and then you go to Hitler's elevator that was made, gold-plated, and you couldn't take pictures of it. Now, one thing that I saw in the museum is they used Nazi gold, and when you think of that, a lot of that was gold taken from the Jews when they were in concentration camps, from gold teeth, from their possessions, their lives. So literally, people are built into this tea house, and it was just very emotional and moving to think of all that. Once we got up there, it was like super cloudy, but then right as we got up to the peak and the summit, all the clouds started to move, and it was just a really cool experience. Hitler actually was afraid of heights, so I think he only used it like 12 or 14 times. And then the 101st Airborne actually moved in and took over the tea house after the war was over, and they went in, and some of the soldiers actually took souvenirs back home from Hitler's tea house, and it was just a really cool experience.
They broke off pieces from that fireplace. It was some fancy Italian marble that Mussolini had given him as a gift, and a lot of the American GIs hammered away chunks off of it.
I also wanted to talk about Salzburg. I'm a musician, so I was super excited to go there because Mozart was born there. The bottom left, like yellow building right there, is where he was born. He was born in 1756. So it's a museum now, and I actually got to spend time with Mrs. Falstich while we were there, so we got to like walk around and see everything. The Sound of Music was filmed there too, so that's another like big thing that people like know about. But seeing it in person, you're like, whoa, this is so cool. I bought like a little picture. They had like artists just around, and like a hand painted picture of Mozart. So that was just something special that I got to take back. Also, I don't have a picture of it on here, but we got to see the oldest coffee house there. It was built in 1700, so just like, wow, that's still there. And then the middle picture on the bottom is the Hohensalzburg Fortress. It was built in 1077. The purpose of it was to protect the archbishops from getting attacked, and it was actually never like taken over. They sustained it, like it was strong enough to withstand anyone trying to come in and take over.
Well, that's kind of our trip. We flew back home from Munich, and we got back and we were recovering. It was a while to recover, but all in all, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better group to go with us. These kids and parents that went with us were fantastic. Obviously, we saw a lot of things that I'm sure the kids could sit down and tell you a lot more if you'd like to, but I enjoyed it. I appreciated the kids. And again, leading up to it, we did a lot of teaching them. I could bring in the presentations. We met about 6 times every month before we left. Our goal was to have them a little bit informed about what we were going to see, not going blindly, to appreciate it. And we went with actually 3 other groups, a group from California, Maryland, and New Jersey. And I'm not just saying this because we're here tonight, but our group was the most attentive. Our group was, it was fantastic. I would look around and their group's talking, and I was thinking, what are we doing? Our kids were right up in front, and that's just attributed to them. And we encouraged them to do that, but they really took it. I know Autumn has a whole journal. I'd see her writing on the bus. She was always writing down, and we encouraged them to do that too. So I know they know a lot more, and they really had a great experience, and I was proud of them too. So, any questions or anything?
Sounds very exciting, and we certainly appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and what a rewarding experience.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
It was. To me, it was rewarding to see them enjoy it. That what I do and what we do, and all of us teach and do that, to see the kids' faces when they see the Eiffel Tower for the first time or all that stuff, just brought joy to me. So, yeah.
Where do you guys want to go next?
A lot of places.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, you all are welcome to stay if you'd like, but if you'd like to leave, that's okay too. Item 3, lease and additional appropriation hearing. 3.1, consider adoption of the proof of publication for lease hearing.
So this is the proof of publication for notice of the lease hearing, and it's presented to you for your acceptance and just acknowledgement that this was done in due form of the law prior to this.
So no action required.
We'll enact on that, that'd be great.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3.2, lease hearing.
So if I may, just before the public comment, Plymouth Community Schools is funding this project through lease financing, as is done with other past construction and renovation projects. Lease financings are used by school corporations across the state of Indiana in order to borrow for renovation and construction. So the multi-school building corporation will actually purchase a portion of the existing building and the real estate on which the new building will be constructed at the closing for at least the appraisal value. And the building corporation will lease the building back to the school corporation. And the lease rental due from the school corporation will be paid from property taxes, will be for the lease of the building during the term of the lease. That lease rental will be sufficient to pay for the principal and interest due to the bondholders.
Action on
So at
that.
this point, we just open it up for any public comment on
Questions from anyone?
You need a vote to open a public hearing, so your motion and second and a vote.
Okay, let's have a motion. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is open. Now, comments from anyone? Questions? If not, we'll move on to 3.3, consider
You
adoption.
also need to vote to close the public
I
hearing.
Sorry.
move the hearing, or the public comment to be closed.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing's closed. Item 3.3, consider adoption of the proof of publication for additional appropriation hearing.
Similar to item 3.1, this proof of publication for the additional appropriation hearing is presented to you for your approval, acceptance, acknowledgement that this was done in due form of the law prior to this meeting.
Action on that.
Please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3.4, additional appropriation hearing.
Plymouth Community Schools will receive money for the sale of the real estate to the building corporation. Since this money was not initially listed in our annual budget, corporations are required to hold a hearing for the additional appropriation of those funds. So we entertain a motion to open the hearing.
Okay, motion to open hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is open. Questions? Comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion to close.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is closed. Item 4, consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Anyone want to pull out any items in the consent agenda? Those in favor of accepting the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have accepted the consent agenda. Item 5, business transactions. 5.1, consider adoption of resolution authorizing execution of lease and sale of real estate.
So relating to the lease hearing, as required by the school leasing statute, after a hearing, the school board must approve the form of the lease and authorize the officers to execute such agreement. This lease is the agreement whereby the school corporation will levy the required property tax to pay the lease payments. Lease payments will be paid to the multi-school building corporation and used to pay the bondholders. Without the lease, bondholders will have no assurance that the building corporation will repay the bonds. The lease is the mechanism by which the property tax collections can get to the bondholders, and so it's presented to you for your approval this evening.
Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 5.2, consider adoption of additional appropriation resolution.
Similarly, related to the additional appropriation hearing, this resolution outlines the appropriation of funds that will be received for the sale of the real estate. The resolution also specifies that the funds will be placed in a school corporation construction account separate from all other school corporation funds until the project is complete. It's recommended to you for your approval.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Let me back up. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5.4, consider adoption of resolution authorizing bond anticipation notes.
If I may,
Pardon?
5.3.
Oh, I'm sorry. You went up too high. 5.3, consider adoption of resolution assigning construction bids.
so the multi-school building corporation will be the issuer of the bonds. The bond proceeds will be held by the trustee bank and will be used to pay contractors for the work done on the building. So as a result, the construction contracts will need to be with the multi-school building corporation because that entity will hold the money to pay the contractors. So the school corporation receives the bids and with the contracts and awards the bids or contracts under state law, but then assigns those bids to the multi-school building corporation. So with that, this resolution is recommended to you tonight for your approval.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution? Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll go on to 5.4. Consider adoption of resolution authorizing bond anticipation notes.
This resolution authorizes our issuance of bond anticipation notes, by the multi-school building corporation in one or more series. This will help us cover the costs associated with the project prior to the actual issuance of bonds. So again, it's recommended to you tonight for your approval.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Question? Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5.5, consider adoption of resolution approving the first supplement to the master continuing disclosure undertaking, whatever that means.
So there are a lot of requirements and documents associated with issuing the bonds, and so this resolution authorizes the required individuals to execute all documents and certificates required in order to issue and deliver the bonds.
Is there a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.6, ratify master contract. We'll get it on the table, and then I think you have a question. Any comments or anything?
If I may, sure. It's presenting a contract this evening that's been agreed to and between PEA and the school corporation. It's been ratified by PEA, I believe, on Thursday of last week. The process was certainly professional, established common goals, aspirations that we really do aspire to provide our teachers. Appreciated everyone's contributions to that. With that, the contract this year includes language that will hopefully clarify our compensation model a bit more. It also includes, or within that, the generation of what money is available for bargaining and as well as the hiring of new teachers. It also includes some language that affords teachers a chance to carry over some of their unused personal days each year. Overall, it's going to result in a $350 base salary increase for those who meet the eligibility requirements.
Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions?
I'd just like to commend the Teachers Association and the administrative team on making a mutual agreement, and I hope it works out well for every party. Good job.
Mrs. Cryer?
Yes, representing PEA, and here's some of our teachers here tonight. We came to really show our support for our public schools. One of the challenges that we are finding year after year is the changing in state funding. And it's making it very difficult for us, as far as a school corporation in a rural county, to be able to provide the programs that will benefit our students and put them on a competitive level with other school corporations. You know, we're talking about a raise of $350 base pay. It's not much, but it was the best we could do with the circumstances that we had. You know, over 90% of all Hoosier kids go to traditional public schools. And we do have an obligation as teachers, as school board members, as community members, as parents, to provide the best education, the best programming that we can for our children. The state is making it more and more difficult. When they have changed the funding formula, especially with the complexity index, what it means for our rural schools, Marshall County is witnessing this right now, is that we're getting less and less funding. And so part of the reason for us coming here tonight is to let the school board know that the Plymouth teachers, PEA, we're here, we're ready, we're willing to start educating the public on this issue and fighting for our schools. Thank you.
Very well said.
Yes. Anyone else? Questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to ratify the master contract?
It's on the table.
It's on the table.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
have to call it.
Those in favor of ratifying the master contract signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and the master contract has been ratified. Thank you very much. Appreciate everything everybody does. And if you're involved in the play over the weekend, it was phenomenal. Item 5.7, consider proposed course changes.
Yes, the high school administrators and teachers have been working together on a list of potential offerings, and Mr. Condon will review the first set of potential classes.
Good evening. Thank you once again for letting me come before you. I believe that you all have this digitally on your screen. I hope that you've had an opportunity to read through it. Let me explain it for you. I'm going to focus on the list of courses on the very front page. You can see that it is a lengthy document. I've provided for you directly from the Department of Education copy and paste course descriptions as well as bulleted items underneath each course description, inclusive of the course number, the approximate time within the child's experience in which they would take the class, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, any prerequisites that might exist, etc. So let's focus on that list on page 1, and then I'll expand from there. The first class that we're recommending for approval is Landscape Management 2. This course would be offered through our agriculture program. Over to the right, under the side heading of CTE, I want to point out to you that this identifies whether or not this course would bring vocational monies back based on per pupil enrollment in the class. And in parenthesis, we've identified for you the demand and the wage in terms of a level. So for landscape management, it is high wage, high demand out in their profession. And you can see that we would bring back $500 per pupil who enroll in that class. This course would be offered every other year, opposite of the prerequisite course, which would be Landscape Management 1. The second course we would like to recommend is called Robotics Design and Innovation. This is somewhat of an introductory level course. It is intended to help further promote our students' interest in robotics. As you know, we do have a highly successful robotics program, a club at Plymouth High School. We also want to continue to branch out and partner with area businesses who have robotics within their business site. Unfortunately, this is not a CTE-funded course. The third course we're recommending for approval is a course that we had years ago that we feel a strong need to bring back into our curriculum, and it's called Interpersonal Relationships. Our teachers strongly advocated for this class. As our households become more and more diverse, we feel that the need is greater than ever to foster interpersonal skills on behalf of our students. In other words, their ability to interact with others and I mean people who are different from themselves culturally, ethnically, by likes, etc., so that we can get along and form dynamic relationships based on trust. This too is a CTE funded course. It is $150 per pupil that we'll bring back to the corporation. The next 3 courses all go together to form a sequence. We're really excited about this. We're going to partner with Ancilla College to form a culinary arts program. It's inclusive of 3 courses. You can see it's an introductory course, which would be housed at Plymouth High School. It's a CTE funded course, which would bring back $300 per pupil enrolled. And then the second and third courses, which are entitled Culinary Arts and Hospitality 1 and Culinary Arts and Hospitality 2, would most likely be offered off campus in the near future and instructed by the chef that was employed by Ancilla College. Those programs are both high demand and guarantee high wage for the students who graduate from that program. And you can see that each of those bring in $500 per pupil enrolled in the program. The next course that we would like to recommend for approval is through our business department, and it is called Sports and Entertainment Marketing. And you can see there it is a CTE funded course. It brings back $300 per student enrolled. The demand for this is low because the market is somewhat limited, but the wage is significant if you're fortunate enough to be an individual who gains employment in that profession. Next is an introduction to entrepreneurship class. We feel that it would be a challenging program for our students to get involved in thinking about opening up their own business. I'm fortunate enough to serve 2 roles. I serve as the high school principal, and I also represent Plymouth, the city of Plymouth, on the Economic Development Board at the corporation, with Jerry Chavez as our president. You know, we really look at a number of things each year in our efforts for economic development and growth, one of which is retention of existing businesses. How can we help them? And then we look at recruiting and attracting new businesses to our area as well. When we break that down, one of the things that we want to look at is promoting those within our community, the possibility of expanding their horizons and taking chances, taking risks, becoming entrepreneurs. So we are looking at opportunities to create an entrepreneurship hub, for lack of better terms, throughout the county. And we feel that this would contribute towards that. The unfortunate reality is that it does not bring CTE money back to the corporation, but we do think that it blends in with the regional effort for economic development. And then finally, we have a course called Digital Applications and Responsibility. This would be offered through our business department as well. I want to point out to you that this is kind of a temporary course. This introduces students to various applications on the computer, inclusive of spreadsheets, which can be applied to a number of different courses and curriculum areas. We hear over and over again that although our students are extremely gifted and talented with their use of digital resources, one of the areas that they're lacking in is how to work with spreadsheets, how to use them effectively, to analyze data. We currently have a 7th grade class at the junior high that is taking this course, and that is the level where it will be housed from this point forward. But we have a group of students beyond 7th grade, and I'm talking about our current 8th graders, that we need to prepare as they come into high school. So this will target that group of students. It'll be a temporary course, but there's a need to teach those skills to our students, to prepare them for high school and beyond. Questions on the courses that I've promoted before you this evening?
I think it's good, Jim, that you and your staff definitely look at the needs of the kids, and I think what you recommended is definitely meeting those needs, and it's important to stay up to date with it.
These courses were all recommended to me, Mr. Pinkerton, by our department chairs, so I value their input.
I would recommend we approve. the recommended courses.
We have a couple more.
Anything on 10, 11, and 12?
We have
Yes.
some other items on there that I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hartley. Mrs. Van Reech.
So there are 3 additional potential classes with an integrated math lab and an integrated mathematics 2 along with a finite. We're asking that those be considered as well. However, we're waiting on pending the results of the waiver submitted by the Indiana Department of Education with regards to the general diploma. And then the State Board of Education's adoption to the graduation pathways, which will be tied directly to these 3 courses. So in an effort to be proactive, we want to include them. We're just unclear at this time if they will be offered on the course selection sheet.
I'm married to a math teacher. What's finite math?
I've got a page dedicated to it.
It actually would enhance the opportunities for students who have fulfilled some math requirements and leading themselves into the college readiness courses that usually are typically taken as a freshman.
Okay.
How soon will we know?
It was
On the
today.
Yeah, on the waiver, I'm not sure. We'll just wait to hear back from the federal government on that. On the graduation pathways, that panel concluded their work today and sent a recommendation to the State Board of Education. They'll begin tackling that at their next work session, I believe in a couple of weeks, and probably acted upon at their next business meeting in December.
That's not going to affect what we do here tonight, is it?
They're connected, and how all those things come together is what we want to wait and see before we actually throw those on a course selection sheet.
So the last 3 are made.
So it's all, they're all,
Depending on.
if we approve them and we can move forward with it, yes.
So we're approving all of them.
Mhm.
Okay, is there a motion to approve
So
those
moved.
courses? Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions?
No.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You have new course changes approved.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you. Item 5.8, consider memorandum of understanding agreement with Miller's Mary Manor.
This is not a new agreement, it's just needed updated, and it outlines in case of a disaster where Miller's Mary Manor needs to evacuate, they can utilize one or both of our schools until they're able to re-enter. So Mr. Brown's worked on that, appreciate his efforts in collaborating with them, and that's pretty much tonight for the board.
Is there a motion to approve the understanding agreement?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.9, new and revised policies, first reading.
So this is a first reading, it doesn't need any action this evening. There's a new policy relating to the placement of students in foster care, as well as policy relating to the protection of personally identifiable information, as well as updated guidelines relating to school lunch and nutrition. So if you have any questions now, I'll be happy to entertain them. We'll be presented to you again next month as a second reading for action.
Questions? If not, let's move on to 5.10, new and revised policies, second reading.
These were before you last month. There are 3 policies that I'm summarizing relate to the necessary security as it pertains to our technology systems in use. There being a second reading, entertain any questions. Otherwise, they're recommended to you tonight for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The new policies have been approved. 5.11, project update.
Well, we adopted several resolutions tonight related to the financing of the project and our relationship with the Multi-School Building Corporation, so I appreciate that. Overall, we are entering what's called the design development phase of the project, and so that's where I get into just a higher level of detail with respect to the building, and that will allow our construction management firm to work on estimates and at a greater level of detail, and that eventually going to lead to construction documents being put out to bid. So we're still on schedule with the design piece. That design development phase will include December, January, and there'll be components of that being presented to you probably the February meeting. So, still on schedule.
Any questions or anything? If not, item 6, superintendent's comments or remarks.
With respect to our core values, just touch on each of those this evening. Today, tomorrow are the Made in Marshall County days. Those are exciting days where students from all over the county can visit with representatives from the manufacturing industry from all over the county, learn more about the companies, what they make, what being an employee within the company might mean. Additionally, several students are able to participate in mock interviews. So it's a great experience for not just for Plymouth kids, but for all kids in Marshall County, and as well as great exposure for our businesses. I'm excited to participate in that. Carrie, the annual blood drive at Washington Discovery Academy is next week. They are not the only school that does this. Several of our schools do. The high school always coordinates big blood drives. NAMI's done that as well. Jefferson. Just filing WDAs here this week. If you're interested in participating, let me know. We'll get you signed up. But we appreciate all the effort that goes into that from students and staff. It's a great service and opportunity for our kids, and we're thankful for that. With respect to high expectations, Mr. Condon, Mrs. Felke, and myself were at the State House yesterday to be recognized on behalf of all the efforts of our teachers and staff with respect to dual credit and the number of dual credits that our kids earn. It was a pleasure to be down there and be recognized and celebrate that. And that continues to be a great opportunity for our students. Teamwork, computer programming, our computer programming kids. It's a class, it's not even a club or anything yet, but with the help of their instructor, Ms. Lindsay Moore, they participated in the competition this past weekend, and of that group, 2 small groups performed extremely well, finishing 2nd and 3rd place in their categories. And the excitement that has been generated from that is quickly becoming contagious, and so it's just neat to see again more opportunities for our kids to not just be in the classes that they really enjoy, but also apply them in some fun atmospheres. And kids earn scholarships from that as well. Those who placed earn some gift certificates as well as scholarships to if they attend IUPUI in their School of Informatics. So tremendous opportunity. Really appreciate the teacher and kids taking their time to do that. Integrity, as you know, we adjusted our intercession this fall for our K-8 group to provide language services for our level 1 students. Anecdotally, it was a success. Just very clear, some kids' needs were being met. Appreciated that time. Some positive stories coming from that, and I appreciate everyone's efforts in making that shift in kind of a short time frame. And so we're going to continue that for the spring. There'll be some efforts to connect with those families who went as well as those who didn't, who couldn't make it, and ensure that we can continue to meet some needs during that time frame. And then enjoyment. Mr. Holloway mentioned it, but the Spell of Sleeping Beauty cast held their performances this weekend, and to say they were a success was probably an understatement. It's always a great event for area elementary schools to be able to come in and watch at the latter part of the week, and then certainly for the community to observe and enjoy throughout the weekends. We, again, appreciate everyone's efforts that are involved in putting those shows together. Next meeting, one more celebration and enjoyment real quick. I know we acknowledged it previously, but Cobb Kaufman was the Regional Assistant Principal of the Year, and he's going to be recognized at the banquet here next week, and so we'll be attending that with him to help celebrate the success of that. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, December 5th. There will be an executive session that evening that will begin at 6. The board meeting will start at 7 o'clock.
Any other business to come before the board? Questions from the audience, comments, anything?
Could I add one thing, and I have probably omitted telling Mr. Hartley this, and I apologize. Amy Schmeltz and her Spell Bowl team has recently qualified for the state championships again. So I commend Amy and those students.
Well done. Yes.
Our FFA program actually went to the National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana, with 67,000 FFA members who bombarded the city over October 25th, 6th, and 7th. So we thank you for approving that as well.
Sure. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.